Welcome back, everybody. I am here with Max Rykov with Nice, and he was just telling me that it's a fun way to remember it is it's nice to have you. So tell me, Max, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my family came to the United States 30 years ago as refugees from the former Soviet Union
Wow.
in 1993. So my family is from Uzbekistan, and in the late 80s, there was a program that the U.S. developed as part of the refugee program that allowed religious minorities in the Soviet Union to come to the U.S. through the refugee system with a little bit of a less of a burden of proof of their persecution, because it was kind of implied. So my family came over 30 years ago, and I started working at NICE a few years ago because we're a refugee organization. That's something that personally spoke to my history.
Great. So you came over and you have that real lived experience, and now you're giving back through the NICE organization. So we were kind of laughing a little bit before the show about, is it Nice or is it NICE? And you were telling me about that. So tell me more about NICE, the organization.
So our full name is Nashville International Center for Empowerment, which is a mouthful. So everyone knows us by our acronym NICE. And we have a slogan that we're trying to put out there. It's nice to have you in Nashville, because when refugees first come to the U.S., we want to welcome them to our community in our city. We want them to be greeted with that message. It's nice to have you here. And so what we do is we provide people with integration services. We meet people at the airport when they first arrive in the country. We find people their first homes, their first jobs, get connected with community and an English education, all the things that they need to learn a new life, because folks that we're working with have oftentimes lived in a refugee camp for 20 years. And life here in the U.S. and in Nashville is completely different than life from the circumstances that they came from. So it's a lot of trauma and just a lot of integration and cultural norms to learn.
Right, I'm sure that's true, and so it's nice to have an organization to help make that transition. Are you able to kind of remember what that was like, making that transition yourself?
I was really young. I was 4 years old when my family came over, but I very much remember how difficult it was for my parents.
Yeah.
So nobody ever wants to flee their home or leave their home. Around the world, there's over 100 million people who were forced to leave their homes. And in my family's situation, all their friends and family and everything that they knew and loved was back home, and life felt so kind of barren. It was so confusing and feeling different than everyone else, and taking jobs where my mom told me this story where she went for her first job interview. She does skincare, and she was sitting with somebody who was speaking English and interpreting, but she knew enough English to understand a little bit. And the person was telling the employer, you can actually pay them less.
Oh, no.
Which is illegal, first of all, but it's just one of those things that people deal with that's completely unacceptable. So it was really difficult for my parents at first, and for me just as a little kid, just feeling different and not knowing the language. So it's a lot for people to come here to experience discrimination, and there's no sense of belonging. The food's different, the cultural norms are different, the laws are different. So,
now, was there an organization like NICE in place when you were kind of going through that process, that adjustment process?
Yeah, so around the U.S., there are about 300 of these refugee resettlement agencies that work within the formal structure of the U.S. government refugee admissions program. We have 3 here in Nashville. We have NICE, Catholic Charities, and Espiritus. And there was an organization in Birmingham, Alabama, where my family moved to originally, that did that. It wasn't as robust as the ones that we have here in Nashville, but yes, there was.
Well, that's good. I'm glad there was a service. I was just thinking through, like, when you've got to learn the language, like what programs are in place, and like how has it improved since, over the past 30 years? Do you feel like we've made strides in making it a more seamless process with the 3 organizations of which yours is one of?
I think so, yeah. So the history of refugee resettlement in the U.S., obviously the U.S. has been a nation of refugees for a long time, And really after World War II, the U.S. kind of informally was accepting refugees, especially from Europe and the Holocaust. And in 1980, the U.S. actually formalized the program. The Refugee Admissions Act was passed under the Reagan administration, which then created a network of these organizations who are funded in part by the government to do this work. But there was previously more of a focus on private communities as volunteers doing this, and now it's kind of a mixture. And because there are so many more people just being displaced around the world, NICE and Catholic Charities and Espiritus and agencies all around the country, we're relying more on community support to help mentor families and volunteer with families and do that kind of English education. This coming year, the Biden administration just announced the federal fiscal year started October 1st. There's going to be 125,000 refugees admitted to the U.S., which is twice the number that were admitted last year. And there's not enough time for the kind of our infrastructure to scale up, so we really rely on community support to help people out and work with us and get trained by these agencies.
Yeah, it sounds like there is a tremendous need. So what is the main thing that like your organization is focused on, and like how can people get involved with helping?
So we do a lot. The very first thing that we do is to find people housing. And it's becoming harder and harder in Nashville for everyone to find affordable housing. So one, we rely on property management companies and landlords who are willing to work with us and the different agencies to rent to refugees who are coming here legally through the State Department, but they don't have a credit score or job history, right? So they can, the things that property management companies, apartments usually look for. So we want people to work with us. We want people to help find housing, but also mentor families. So there's a lot of integration work. So to teach English, to just kind of take someone to a grocery shopping trip, because a grocery store here is very different than buying food from where people are coming from. Right. Yeah, a lot of ways to get involved. Any of the three organizations are perfect places to start here.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad that you're all working collaboratively and for the same goal. It's interesting to me that you mentioned grocery stores because of the international traveling that I've done. One of my favorite things to do is to go to grocery stores because I think it's such like a glimpse into culture, and they are all unique, and kind of navigating them is, to me, like an eye-opening experience that's been really enriching.
And here in the U.S., refugees get certain benefits, including what used to be called food stamps. Everyone still knows them as food stamps, the SNAP EBT benefits, and then WIC and other things. It's complicated even for people who live in this country to know how to use them. So we're looking for people to take folks on shopping trips and even learn how to use, like, what can you get with food stamps or your WIC benefits. So that's a whole other thing to navigate, too.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have resources like that at your office or on your website? Like how would somebody, I work at the Nashville Public Library, so maybe we have somebody come in and there's a refugee. Like how would we connect them to your resources?
So our website is www.empowernashville.org, or you just look up, I think we're the first result if you type in Refugee Organization Nashville online, but empowernashville.org. You can see our volunteer page. We do all the training for volunteers and the various different programs that you can volunteer with.
So a cool way to get involved with the city, meet new interesting people, is to volunteer at any of these opportunities.
Absolutely, and obviously we're here at Celebrate Nashville. This is a city that's incredibly multicultural. We have people coming here from all around the world, so it's an opportunity to broaden your life experience and the way that you interact with the world. We have dozens upon dozens of cultures right here in Nashville.
So what is your favorite thing about how multicultural Nashville is?
So probably my favorite thing, this may seem a little bit obvious, is the food. At NICE we have over 20 different nationalities represented, and we do potlucks really well. So people bring food from their home cultures and cook, and yeah, that's really beautiful. And just how kind and welcoming people from around the world are. And there's a certain kind of openness that I love seeing in the people that from different countries that I get to interact with. It's a warmth and a friendliness and a culture of sharing. For example, Nashville resettled over 600 Afghan evacuees over the past 2 years, and whenever we introduced a family to a volunteer group, for example, every time they went over, the families from Afghanistan were basically preparing a feast because that was a cultural norm of hospitality. So we got Southern hospitality here, but Afghan hospitality is that magnified tenfold. So that's one of my favorite things.
I love that, just kind of the shared humanity and us all trying to come together and have just happy, pleasant lives. And it sounds like maybe if you volunteer, you might get invited to some really cool potlucks.
Yeah, that's definitely a benefit of it.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to share with our viewers about NICE or anything?
There's so many ways to get involved. There's volunteering with our numerous programs. You can make donations, financial donations. You can help furnish a new refugee family's first apartment. We have an Amazon wish list. Go on our website and we will find a way for you to get plugged in and help, and it's incredibly meaningful and transformative work.
Great. Thank you so much.